out there to all my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way. And I had some new listeners on, and I just wanted you to know that that is actually the title of my number one best-selling book. And I am also a transformational lifestyle mentor. And what I do is I empower purpose driven women to start living their best life on their terms. So, what we like to talk about on this podcast is empowerment, self improvement. So, those are the topics that I like to select and present to you because I'm always prayerful that one of these podcasts will help you get unstuck. You will start executing what it is for you to start living your best life. And today, our topic is the themes of transformation, empowerment, and conscious living. But I have a question for you. What if the diagnosis you received in your story was actually the invitation to begin again? My guest today, Babs, and we'll tell you what that stands for. She faced stage 4 cancer and discovered that surrender, not control, was the path to freedom. Her story reveals how resilience, self awareness, and grace can turn our greatest storms into the very wings that help us rise. If you've ever wondered how to turn pain into purpose, you want to lean into this conversation. So let me introduce you to Amy Lee Carroll. Hi, Amy. Amy
Hi,
Lynn. Amy Lynn.
hi, Cassandra. How are you today, love?
I am doing well. I am doing well. And I just want to thank you for being a guest on my show. Is your way in your way?
Excited to be here.
Yeah. Prior to us starting, Amy Lynn, I'd like to read your bio just so my listeners will get a better understanding of what qualifies you to talk about what we're going to talk about. So, Babs, it okay, Babs. We have okay. Tell the audience what Babs. What does that stand for?
Babs is my spirit name.
Uh
And as
huh.
you can see, if you're looking on the screen versus just listening, there's a butterfly after Babs. And Babs is short for badass butterfly.
Oh, I love that. Badass butterflies. So listen, Babs is a certified spiritual development, religious trauma, and life coach whose journey from stage 4 cancer survivor to thriving guide inspires resilience, healing, and empowerment. Through her signature programs, she helps others embrace vulnerability as strength, surrender control, and reclaim their voice to create a life of authenticity and purpose. Many of us want to live a life of purpose, but there's a problem. There is a problem. So let's find out what that problem is. Okay, so Babs, or sometimes I will interchange listeners, Babs, Amy,
Amy
Amy.
Lynn.
Yeah, I would just, who knows? I don't know. I'm just going to go with the flow, okay?
Hey,
So,
I'm one of 15 kids. You can call me whatever you want and I will
oh,
respond. I am well
oh,
trained.
oh, are you serious? Oh my gosh. Well, listen, tell us about your backstory.
My backstory is, I like to say it's no different than anyone else's, and yet it is so uniquely my own.
Yes.
Because I believe that each of us, Cassandra, is here. Our journey is a journey back home, a
Mm,
journey back home to the divine, to God, to source, creator, universe, whatever you call that higher power. Our journey here is not to get somewhere, but to remember what we're called for. And
mm,
so I grew up in a large numbered household. Although the household was small, three
yeah.
bedrooms.
Uh-huh.
Um, I had seven brothers and seven sisters, eight girls, seven boys, and I
Oh
grew
my
up in a
God.
very rigid, uh, very fundamental Christian household.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that I recognized. about 10 to 15 years ago that I'd actually been raised in a cult.
Oh, wow.
Was not aware of it during the time. And so as that matriculates into my own experience and I move out and go on to college and, relationships and all of those things, our childhood upbringing plays such an integral role.
Mhm.
And for me, I went into, I did all of the things that you're supposed to do. I went to college and graduated, got my master's, did well, excelled, moved into corporate America,
Mhm.
and, you know, took the world by storm, as they
Sure.
say.
Right.
And yet, unfortunately for me, at the end of the day, there was such an emptiness that
Mm.
I experienced because for those first 35 years of my life, almost 40 years of my life, I'd
Mm.
spent almost every day making sure that everybody around me was happy. So
Wow.
much so that I had no clue what made me happy. So in
Mm.
2007, after many years of cancer diagnoses and traveling that journey, and living through that
Mhm.
experience, which I know so many people do today. In 2007, I was part of an experimental program at the Mayo Clinic. And my doctor actually called me in and he gave me what I now call, some call an expiration date. To me,
Mhm.
it was my very first invitation into my own life.
Oh, wow.
He gave me 6 weeks
Mm.
in
Oh,
2007. And today,
wow.
as we talk and people are listening, this is 2025.
I
So
know.
if we don't think men are fallible, just take that example. Because I did what most people do. I went home and I fell apart. I cried
Mhm.
my eyes out. I was a
Yeah.
rule follower.
Yeah.
Who is this God that would allow, like, he would bring
Yeah.
me here to do this? And having fought for the past 15 years prior to that with different cancer diagnoses. And then you go into remission and then it's back. And just
Mhm.
traveling that journey, which felt like such a roller coaster,
Mhm.
I began to question absolutely everything I
Mhm.
thought I
Yeah.
believed.
That's good. I thought I believed.
I thought that I believed because
Mm.
there's a big difference between what we really truly believe and what we think we believe. And how do you know that that's true? We've
Mhm.
all heard of the midlife crisis
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
having a crisis of faith.
Okay.
What if it's not a crisis of faith, but a crisis of belief?
Mm.
Because our
Wow.
faith is something that we gain through experience. Faith
Yes.
is not an activity, it's not a behavior, it is a being, it's an essence of
Mhm.
who we are. And it
Mhm.
is part of who we are because of the experiences we have had. So, this idea of having a crisis of faith made no sense to me. But when I began to look at the idea of belief, what do I believe and why? Where did I get that belief? And does
Right.
it serve me today as
Yeah.
much as it did the day I picked that belief up? And so
Wow.
instead of beginning to talk about things like conditioned belief or
Mhm.
conditioned thinking or programmed thinking,
Mhm.
what if in that space, instead of operating on conditioned or programmed, we're just simply operating on borrowed belief?
Mm.
And those
Mhm.
beliefs are borrowed from people who love us deeply, our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, our teachers, our professors, coworkers, friends, etc.
Mhm.
But what happens is when we pick up that borrowed belief, there's not a user manual.
Right.
And so we are not reminded
Right.
that just because we picked that belief up and it serves a purpose for a season,
Mhm.
doesn't mean that that belief is meant to serve us for all seasons. And so what
Yeah.
happens is we don't want to set it down. So we now become a slave to that belief. Well,
Yeah.
this is my belief, so this is how I better act. This is how I better show.
Amy Lynn, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
In growing up, would you, you said you grew up in a cult. did you all go to church? Was it religious? Was it relationship? Where,
It was
where, where did that come from?
it was rooted in a religion, uh,
Okay.
masquerading as Christianity.
Okay.
We were taught predestination.
Uh-huh.
Only a
Uh-huh.
very select few people are going to heaven, and guess what? You are not one of them.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So imagine at 7 years old, knowing at 7 years old that you are not a chosen child of God and that you're not
Right.
going to heaven. And in
Right.
Sunday school class that Sunday, they teach us about the rapture.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a deacon in the church. He was a deacon
Mm-hmm.
in this community. And so,
Mm-hmm.
well, he's going to heaven. So
Sure.
we're driving home after church, and all I can think about is if the rapture happens right now, I'm going straight to hell
You're going
right
to
now
hell. Right. Oh
because
my
I got no
gosh.
control over this car. And so there was a huge sense of fear. You do what
Mm-hmm.
you do because you're told to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and the consequences of not doing it are dire.
Right.
The consequences of questioning could be
Right.
even more dire.
Wow. It's kind of like, as you indicated, God or whomever the higher power one believes, like what a bad person. Yeah, I'm trying to do the best I can, but I'm going to hell. I'm still going to hell. So my other question is, okay, you worked in corporate,
Mhm.
and at what age were you diagnosed with cancer?
My first diagnosis was just after my 21st birthday.
Okay, okay. Now, when you were diagnosed, what did your parents say? How was that whole experience when you shared it with your family, or did you share it with everyone?
My parents at that point in my experience had passed away.
Oh, really?
And so it
Wow.
was not only navigating life now without that direction, but navigating life in a space where, and this is important because this is part of those belief patterns that were
Yeah.
raised with children.
Mhm,
Good things happen to good people and bad
mhm,
things happen to bad people, and cancer
mhm,
is bad. And so I must be a bad person.
mhm.
And though,
Yeah.
even though I had been this rule follower and continued to be a rule follower, I was a vegetarian. Matter of fact, I learned my very first cancer diagnosis. I learned because I'd gone in for a physical because I was running a marathon. I was
Mhm.
running the Leukemia Foundation marathon in Maui and wanted to have a physical before I left. And then we
Sure.
found a lump.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's like I'm a rule follower. I do all the things I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Somehow we believe because we're taught if we do what we are told, then the
Right.
outcome will be what we expect.
Right.
And God is
Right.
not transactional.
Mhm. Mhm.
And God is
Mm.
also not the purveyor of harm or death
Mhm. Right.
or
Right.
challenge.
So it sounds like your story is not just about overcoming adversity. It's about embracing the journey of self-discovery and reclaiming the power to shape your own destiny. Because um, what I've learned is we're going to always have struggles in life. All right. And when I think about the experience at the age of 21, what you had gone through, you actually had a choice. You could be bitter about it because you already was somewhat conditioned that I must be really bad because I have cancer, and I wasn't sure whether God loved me. So now I know perhaps he really doesn't because he gave me this. And plus I did all the right things. And that whole aspect to me had to be confusing. So, what is it or what occurred for you to be drawn closer rather than drawn away from your faith?
For many years, my faith was in a season of the chrysalis, the
Mhm.
butterfly, when they go into the cocoon. It was very quiet.
Yes. Yeah.
It was very confusing, as you said. It was such a
Hmm.
good word. But in 2007, when I received that prognosis,
Hmm. Hmm.
I chose to go home So I went home and I cried for 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, it's not fair. This is awful. But
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden, just this little God whisper entered my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that God whisper was, when Dr. C gave you that prognosis, he said, my best understanding, my best opinion is that your prognosis is not good. Opinion,
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
Right.
And so I said, well, if I don't understand the difference between right and wrong and what's good or bad or what's black and white, then how do I answer that question? How do I know for certain? Because that's his opinion. But
Mm-hmm.
his opinion doesn't have to be fact. And at that
Mm-hmm.
point, I was dealing with fact versus opinion.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And now what I function from is a place of truth, capital T. Divine idea is immutable, unchangeable. It's omnipresent. It's all knowing.
Mm-hmm.
What got me to that place of transformation and
Yeah.
transition is after that third day of tears and tantrum throwing,
Yeah. Oh
I
wow.
began to question absolutely everything I thought I believed. And I picked up every spiritual text I could find and I
Mm-hmm.
read it for myself. I read
Mm-hmm.
the Christian Bible. I read the Jewish Torah. I read the Quran. I read
Mm-hmm.
the Bhagavad Gita. I talked
Mm-hmm.
to people and read part of the Vedas. I talked to people in faith circles who
Mm-hmm.
understood faith, not
Mm-hmm.
belief, but faith.
Right.
And I
Okay.
wasn't asking them questions to be a rebel, to prove them
Sure.
wrong.
Yeah.
I wasn't asking them questions to invite them to proselytize, but to help me understand that we are here living this human experience,
Mm-hmm.
but we are divine beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The clothes we wear is our human, it's the human vessel that carries us through this
Right.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so piece by piece, day by day, truth by truth, I began to see my health improving.
Mm.
I went
Okay.
cold turkey off of all the meds, every last one of them, not a single med.
So you got off of them.
I got off of them. I stopped the treatments, got off all meds,
Oh
went
my
whole food,
gosh.
began to learn what does it
Mm-hmm.
mean to pray?
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up with a prayer of petition. That's
Mm-hmm.
how you pray.
Yeah.
You
Mm-hmm.
worship and petition. And worship
Mm-hmm.
is telling God that he's good, and petition is telling God what you want, as if God doesn't already know what you need versus
Mm-hmm.
what you want. And so I did a
Mm-hmm.
deep dive. What is prayer?
Yeah.
And prayer is our life.
Yeah.
Prayer is God being expressed through each and every one of us. And that
Right.
we get to choose what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We've all heard the phrase, "You've made your bed, and so
Lay
now
in
you have to lay in it."
it. Yes.
And
Yes.
I was 42 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I've progressed now from that 35 years old with that prognosis,
Yeah.
and I remarried. Matter of fact, my husband, I give credit to this day. I am here physically in this realm because
Mm.
of his love and his healing power. He
Wow.
loved me through those questions. He was
Mm.
patient with me. He never tried to give me answers.
Yeah.
He allowed me to travel that journey, as you said, to embrace the journey along the way and
Right.
recognize that look, that's kind of why we're here. And
Well,
so
did he marry you after the prognosis
he did.
or after?
He did.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
He did.
Awesome.
Matter of fact, when I called him, because I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, and
Mm-hmm.
he lived in Woodland Hills, California. So literally on complete opposite ends of Interstate
Wow.
or US 10. And we had had a couple of telephone conversations. Matter of
Mm.
fact, I got the prognosis in April, but he and I had only started talking on the phone in January of that year, 2007. And
Wow.
so I called him and just said, look, this is the prognosis. This is what they've said. And he said to me, That's a lie.
Mm.
That's a lie. The prognosis is a lie. And at first I was like, dude, you don't know me well enough to be calling me a liar.
Yeah,
But what
yeah.
he was saying was, is spiritually, that's not true about me.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now, all of these years later, I recognize that invitation, that not that he was calling me a liar,
Sure.
but that this belief, this
Right. Was a
borrowed belief.
mm-hmm.
And at that point, I didn't call them borrowed beliefs. It's only been like the last 3 or 4 years that I've understood the difference between
Between. Okay.
just
Wow.
regular thinking and beliefs versus a borrowed belief. Because if a doctor tells you you're going to die,
Yes.
we assume that that doctor knows
Oh, sure.
everything.
The expert, right? Mm-hmm.
What if
Yeah,
God knows more?
of
What
course.
if God is guiding that doctor and they are
Mm-hmm.
giving you their absolute best sense of right? This isn't
Mm-hmm.
about vilifying, but
Mm-hmm.
it's about recognizing that from a human standpoint, we only have so much understanding or experience, but God has all. He's all knowing. And in
Yeah.
that space, when things don't make sense, now I ask the question, okay, how am I out of alignment with God?
Mm-hmm.
Not, holy God, please don't make me go through this challenge again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so to me, your husband, it was like a divine connection.
Oh, no doubt.
And when I listened to you, I had a friend that was stage 4, she diagnosed, and it actually just our conversation brings back to my remember. She did the same thing. I'm not taking this. She was a dietitian. She knew the right thing. She knew the food and blah blah blah. And then it was something that really stuck with me. And there was certain things that she wanted to do in her life.
Mm.
And that's why I have this burden, so to speak, for women to start living their best life on their terms, because we're all here for a reason. We all have purpose. And then I even question, when she passed, she did all the things you did, faith strong, but she didn't make it. And I was like, now why did she not make it? And plus, she never lived the dream that she had, but others do. So, and then by thinking that, it's like, I'm not God. There's a reason for you. And I can actually see the reason, because you are speaking of, based on what you've experienced, not taking any medication, that had to empower you. And conscious living,
Yeah.
so I don't know what God's story was for her, but what's for you. And I'm loving this conversation because you found your purpose out of your pain.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I
and
would
that's a
even suggest,
beautiful thing.
Cassandra, that your friend is no longer not here. She's living on through you.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah.
And so the physical body is one thing. If we fast forward into my experience to October of 2022, I had a stroke,
Mm.
and it was a result of the cancer,
Yes.
and it left me a quadriplegic.
Mm.
And in those days, those early days, to
Yeah.
be just transparent, I don't have a whole lot of memory of it. And I'm grateful that I don't, just hearing what my loved ones and friends. I had a dear friend who lives in Grenada, the Caribbean
Yeah.
island.
Mm-hmm.
And she
Mm-hmm.
literally came up and sat at my bedside for 2 weeks. And she
Mm-hmm.
prayed and she sang and she was just present for me.
Yes.
And in that coming out of that phase, that season, that experience, I recognized that what God had given me again is another invitation. There was a reason I was
Yes.
still here. And I
Yeah.
didn't have to know
Mhm.
what the reason was to know that there is a reason.
Mhm.
Because I
Mhm.
will tell you, since that stroke that left this very athletic and able bodied woman a quadriplegic, I have done more with my life since that stroke than I did in the 50 years that led up to it.
Wow.
I've
Might
published
be.
a book, Amazon
Mm-hmm,
bestseller. I've done a
mm-hmm.
TED Talk with over 100,000 views. I've launched
Mm,
the Life Charter, which is just, for me, the Life Charter is just, this is what works for Babs. This is what brought Babs back from the brink,
mm,
that
mm.
question. And so it's a space of, if we could see the things that we call challenges, if we could see them instead of challenges as invitations
Yeah. Yeah.
into our own experience, that
Yeah.
is so empowering.
Yes.
But it also
Mm,
requires that consciousness of being,
mm-hmm,
that awareness, that presence of saying, okay, this is absolutely not how I would have had this unfold, but it's
mm-hmm.
how it's unfolding. So
Mm.
what's the invitation here for me to live out loud?
Right. Consciously living.
Not
Yes.
the subconscious. And oftentimes I'll use the example of, we've all driven and we get home, we put our keys where they go, we take our shoes off and we go in.
Right.
And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden we think back, I don't even remember the drive home.
Mm,
And that's
right.
unconscious living. Unconscious. Now, our unconscious is very important because it got us home safe that day.
Sure.
We don't vilify it.
Absolutely.
We thank it for what it is. But in that moment of recognizing that we didn't remember the drive home is an invitation. How can I be more present in my experience?
Yeah.
How can I
Being
be
more.
more aware, more
Mm-hmm.
conscious? And in that space, that is an invitation
Yeah.
for God to shine through more brightly. Because
Right.
God's always present. I'm the
Always
one
on.
who dampens. I'm the one who dampens the light because I think I know the way.
Mm-hmm.
But when
Yeah.
I recognize that my way may be in the way,
Yes.
then God
Absolutely.
shines through.
Right. And something else you say is vulnerability. Vulnerability. I I didn't well, actually, that was one of the reasons it took me so long to write my book, because of those barriers. I didn't want to be exposed. I didn't want people to know my life. Like I had a girlfriend. She said, "You told everything." I'm like, "Nah, sweetheart, I didn't tell it all. I
That's
just,
right.
I just told what I felt led to share." And I love that when you said vulnerability is not a weakness; it's a
Mhm.
strength. Unpack that for us.
Well, we're taught in society
Mm-hmm.
that, again, weakness is bad,
Uh-huh.
and that vulnerability would mean that we don't know everything we need to know because we're going to take a step back. To be vulnerable is to
Mm-hmm.
say, I don't know. To be
Mm.
vulnerable is to say, I don't understand why, where, how. I don't understand where what I'm going through right now fits into a bigger picture, and I can't talk about it until I
Mhm.
can see the bigger picture.
Right.
And that
Right.
vulnerability is a human confine that is put onto our soul that dampens our light. Because we don't
Mhm.
come here to figure things out. We don't have this human experience
Yeah.
to figure out the big picture. We are here in this human experience
Mm.
to be the expression of God.
Mhm. Mhm.
In those
Yeah.
moments that from a mortal perspective, a human perspective, we would call vulnerable, I choose to call those authenticity.
Authenticity. I love
It's
that.
just authenticity shining through. But we have to understand our true essence.
Uh-huh.
We have to understand not this human experience in the when, where, why, and how, but just
Right.
to know that our absolute presence, our
Mhm.
essence, is
Mhm.
foundational and rooted in nothing more and nothing less than God.
Mhm. Yeah. I like that because it's also bringing back to my remembrance, and I'm certain my listeners have experienced this or know individuals that have. we're so focused on, and it's okay to be focused on the future in regards to what you want to do, but okay, because things aren't going right, well, I wonder how things are going to be later on. And then they call these psychic people, and then they, you pass by a house and it says psychic reading. Turn to the right, go to that reading, and listen to all of that. And it's all about being in the present, as you indicated, because I don't want to know, this is just me, whether I have the Alzheimer's gene or whether I have, it's like whether, the cancer. I mean, everybody has their individuality, which is fine with me, but I don't want to know. I want to live each day. I want to stay in the present,
Well,
and so
here's the thing that takes us back to that idea of a borrowed belief. When we
mm,
think back to the 80s, a cancer diagnosis was essentially a death certificate.
absolutely,
And then the
absolutely,
90s, thought is what is changing. Yes, there is more medical intervention and things that are being made available, but it's not because of that medical intervention that I am here today.
right,
My
mm,
thought about cancer changed. My understanding of cancer changed.
changed,
Take an example of allergies.
uh-huh,
Pretty mundane. They can be very difficult for some people in different seasons of the year.
sure,
But when I began to realize that an allergy is not a deficit, it's actually an overactiveness to our immune system.
mm,
It's overachieving. And we hear more and more about allergies. And we also hear more and more and more about needing to achieve and overachieve and be an overachiever. And look,
mhm,
I was all those things because that's what I was raised to
mhm,
be. You're a
sure,
valedictorian of your class. You graduate college cum laude. Like you get perfect on this, that, and the other, because if it's not perfect, I literally grew up in a house where if it's not an A, it's an F.
mhm,
And
wow,
so it was so black and white. And so we strive for these things that we think will make us
mhm,
successful. We're
mm,
striving for
yes,
success, and what we should be working toward is a sense of fulfillment. And
yes,
success doesn't play a role in fulfillment because I can tell you today, from a human perspective, I had failed at so many things.
mhm,
But my sense of fulfillment today versus what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago.
yeah,
I didn't understand what fulfillment was. And fulfillment
right,
is knowing who you are.
mhm,
And I would say that it's not just knowing who you are, but whose
you
you
are.
are.
Yeah, that aauthenticity.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
being able to live from that place and owning, we talk so much about, especially here in the Western,
yeah,
Western world, about, being unique and being able to have a voice and finding your voice and
yeah,
speaking from your truth, speaking from your truth and your
yes,
experience. But if we recognize that our truth is God's truth,
mhm,
and we
mm,
get to learn how to navigate that in meaningful and practical ways.
yeah,
And that's going to be different for me than it is for you. And different doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it
right,
different.
exactly. The uniqueness. I love it.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
vulnerability is really just being able to say, okay, this is where I'm at.
uh-huh,
And I may not necessarily like it, but in a space of vulnerability, we also recognize the power of the duality of a blessing and a lesson.
mm, mhm,
Absolutely everything that shows up in our experience is twofold.
mhm, yes,
In that twofold, it is singular because it is always there. It's always a
mm,
lesson.
yes, it is.
And as
Yes,
much as it is a lesson, it's also always a blessing.
mm,
That
mm,
we call the lesson good or bad is our own perception and our own marker.
right, right.
Life
That-
shows up and
yeah,
we get to engage or we get to choose not to.
right. So it sounds like your journey has been a masterclass
Oh,
in
girlfriend.
relinquishing control and embracing command, a shift from the pursuit of control to the ascendancy of autonomy and self mastery.
Absolutely.
Wow, a
Absolutely.
masterclass.
I invite your listeners to just imagine the fullness of their schedules. Today we call it busyness. I've
Yes,
shifted from a place of busyness to having a full calendar.
a,
There's a
a,
difference in feeling it
a
full
full
versus busy.
calendar.
Yeah, it's full. My
Hmm.
calendar is full. I'm blessed. I'm not
Hmm.
busy because I'm not chasing something. But we're
Hmm.
all these really busy, overscheduled, overwhelmed people.
Yeah.
Now, imagine waking up and you can't move
Mm,
from the neck down.
mm, 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 mm,
You
mm.
learn that it's not vulnerable to ask for help. It's actually a blessing to the other person because that's their chosen path is to help another, whether
Mhm,
it's daily
mhm,
activities or whether it's setting up technology or taking the dog for a walk or helping my
mhm.
like we get to choose how we see things that show up in our experience.
Yes.
And just
Mhm.
because we've always been taught that to ask for help is a weakness,
Right.
we can set down that borrowed belief and we can choose to believe something deeper, experience something deeper. And
Mhm.
in that same place of learning that lesson, we are blessing those around us
Yeah.
who want nothing more than to help in a
Right.
space of need.
And I love that because I even have a chapter in my book, the love letters written to women, and in one of the chapters, like dear women who want to know their purpose, and there's no big or small purpose, but purpose it used to drive me like, why am I here? What is my purpose? And as you indicated, a purpose could be helping someone, caregiving. It could be, and it can change.
Yes.
So never a lot of people think, like I have a cousin who is phenomenal. She is a true caregiver and she loves it and she does a phenomenal job. And that is her purpose. And she's okay with that. And that's what she believes. And man, she is just happy as ever. She's fulfilled because that's what she believes she was called to do.
Yeah. It's the
So,
difference between going to bed at night fulfilled and tired
no.
versus overwhelmed and exhausted.
Yes, that was me. Yep, for
Overwhelmed
you.
and exhausted, we don't rest well. Our body cannot let go,
Mm-hmm.
and our
Mm-hmm.
body heals when we rest.
Yes, that's so true.
So, if
That's
we
so
can
true.
begin the process thought by thought,
Yeah.
moment by moment, best we're able to at any given moment, surrender into that place of autonomy, of
Yeah.
divine truth and power
Lo-
and purpose.
Lovely. Wow. Um, could you uncover for my listeners layers of your true self?
Oh, I love, love, love this question because like so many of us that are on that path, I got to find my voice.
Right.
And when we're on a path of finding our voice, it's because we feel like we've been silenced at some point in
Mm-hmm.
our experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you're anything like me, when you find that voice, now you think everybody wants to hear it and needs to hear it because for the love of all things good and great, I
Right.
finally found my
Finally.
voice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But those layers, as you were just pointing out, the layers of our true self is where we learn to actually engage with discernment and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the
Mm-hmm.
space of knowing that just because I have a voice or I have
Mm.
something that I want to say,
Yes.
is this the right place or time to say it?
Exactly. I love
And it
it.
matters how I say it because I can tell you that I love you and be snarky about it, and that can be harmful. Or I can tell you that I love you And that could be the one sentence that saves someone's life today.
That is
It's
so
not about achieving for me. The layers of that true identity and that true self are, it's about casting off the expectations of others, and not from a place of not caring, but not picking up someone else's
good.
expectations. Girlfriend, let me tell you, I spent a lot of time learning how to put down other people's expectations. Just set them down, let them
Hmm.
go. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden I had, by doing that, practicing it with grace and
Hmm.
humility, so
Hmm.
that it wasn't intended to hurt another. But look, we
Yes.
teach people how to treat us.
Yes, we
And
do.
so for decades, some of us have been just, we've been seeking their agendas and their expectations because that's how we keep them happy, right? So when
Hmm.
we begin to shift, to begin to listen to that still small voice that is
Hmm.
within
Hmm.
us, it
Hmm.
is scary for those around us.
Right.
So it's so important that this transformation, which takes a lifetime, that it's
Hmm.
done with grace and humility and alignment, divine alignment, because our aim is not to hurt another. It
Right.
doesn't mean that they might not feel hurt by our transformation,
Right.
but we can be in command of whether how we are expressing this transformation to
Right.
do our best to mitigate that hurting them
Hmm.
purpose.
Hmm.
And so it's
Hmm.
setting down the expectations of others, the agendas of generations, not
Yep.
just our own parents and grandparents, but generations of our family that have come before based on where we were born.
Exactly. Right.
Setting those down and saying, what does that mean to me? That borrowed belief of, this is how a woman acts. This
Right.
is how a wife succeeds. This is
Exactly.
what, a sister or a brother or a father,
Hmm. Hmm.
whatever
Right.
role. Like
Right.
you and I were talking before we connected
Yes.
on the podcast today about the difference between a coach and a travel partner.
That's right.
And for me, that was setting down that borrowed belief that in order for me to help people, I needed to use a word that people understood.
Hmm.
And it was very vulnerable too, because especially, in the last 5 to 10 years, coaching has really come about.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but for me, I had to find something that felt in alignment with who I am.
Hmm.
And
Right.
that's setting down the expectations of others. And it's
Yes.
not that we don't care, it's
Yeah.
that we don't take them on as our own without
Right.
consciously being aware of it.
That's true. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but it's reality. People judge others by the expectations they have.
Absolutely. That's the whole idea. This is the
Yeah.
misunderstanding about comfort zones.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
think that the comfort zone is about keeping us safe.
Yes.
What if the comfort zone is about protecting the people around us?
Yes.
And so we play small in those spaces.
Yeah. Right.
We don't live to our calling in those spaces
Hmm.
because it would be quote unquote uncomfortable for those
Hmm.
around us.
I know. And I thank you for that because I have high expectations, and I need to just, we're all created. I mean, I can't judge. Who am I to judge? So I've learned that part through my journey. Um, it's been tough. Like two people can have the same thing, and one happy and one not because that's not their expectations. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Babs, I tell you, I could talk to you all day, but I just can't.
Me too, girl.
I know your wisdom and insight is just unbelievable. Now, you have a call to action on your website. And tell us what that is about purposeful life. What is that? fulfilling. What does that see call to action on your website?
Absolutely. Our call to action is about living with purpose,
Hmm.
living with clarity, and living with aligned action.
Hmm.
And so what we do in the work with the life charter is that we don't pull out the cookie cutters and say, which one do you want to be?
Right.
We're vulnerable. We throw those
Yes.
cookie cutters out and we teach
Right.
you how to listen for who you already are and
Mm.
forgot along the way.
That's your life charter program.
Yes. And the life charter program is 6 months. There are
Hmm.
12 dimensions in our life, everyone's life. And those 12 dimensions are things like my intellectual life, my
Hmm.
love relationships, my parenting, my character, my financial life, my career. So
Hmm.
those 12 dimensions, each one of us has all 12 of those dimensions, and each one of those dimensions is interactive.
Okay.
It's interspersed. And so in the
Okay.
life charter program, what we do is we help you create your life charter. We look at the premise. What's your belief pattern? We look at
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of those dimensions. What
Hmm.
do you want to, who do you want to be in your character or as a parent or in your love relationships?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
help you put a plan in place that will help you be who you have been called to be,
Mm.
that simply forgot along the way.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Babs, tell my listeners how they can connect with you, get in contact with you.
Absolutely. I trust, Cassandra, that you're going to have my name spelled properly in the show notes. And that's the easiest way to say this, because if I was to spell out my name, people would be like, wait, 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 wait,
I
wait.
know Amy Lynn. Amy, you're right.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Everything is Amy Lynn Carroll. My website, my Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, any of my
Okay.
socials, YouTube. Just Google Amy Lynn Carroll,
Okay.
and whatever modality you want me to show up in, I'm going to be there.
Right. It's A as in apple, M as in Mary, I as in no, I as in ink, L as in lady, Y as in yellow, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, E as in eager. I
Yes.
love it. Thank you. Thank you. Well, my listeners, wow, what a conversation. And I know I just something tells me this conversation resonated with you. It gave you some more insight. It just did something inside where your perspective and the way you see things have is transforming as I talk. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'd like to thank Amy Lynn, and I love just calling her Babs, for her intuitive insight, her wisdom, her knowledge, and helping us to understand what it is to be about your transformation, your self-discovery journey, empowerment, and to start living consciously. And I also want my listeners to share this with someone that you know this will be a blessing to. And also, I just want to, what I always say, I want to say bye for now. God bless you all. And Amy Lynn, thank you so much.
Thank you, Cassandra. And to each of your listeners, may God bless you all.
Thank you.